that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
Ever since RuPaul's Drag Race began to get more popular, there's been a growing curiosity over what truly goes on behind the scenes while on the set of the show. Specifically, the production surrounding RuPaul herself, as there's not a lot of insight that we get to have about RuPaul when the camera isn't rolling.
Nothing you say matters unless that camera is rolling.
Yet, there's been moments over the past couple years where individuals who worked with RuPaul for long periods of time would end up having a very public falling out, which would allow us to peek into the true reality of Drag Race. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the information surrounding why Matthew Anderson and Delta Work would end up leaving the production of Drag Race, and the timeline of events that led us to where the show is now. Let's begin. For almost the whole run of the show, Matthew Anderson was the head of the hair and makeup department for World of Wonder. In specific, he was in charge of getting RuPaul in drag for the runways of the show. Matthew had a very friendly relationship with RuPaul for years. In fact, he was even a guest on RuPaul's What's the Tea podcast and his WoW Presents series. Matthew was also actively involved on Drag Race beginning with Season 2. The last time he would make a cameo on Drag Race would be Season 8 Episode 1, where he also photographed the girls. Now, Matthew's very highly regarded among the community, and rightfully so. So much of his work just goes beyond expectations, truly looking like masterpieces. Yet, despite having such a long-standing relationship with RuPaul, the friendship between the two would end up coming to an end in the summer of 2016. One of the most prevalent rumors behind the downfall of Matthew Anderson and RuPaul's friendship is that while on the set of Season 9 Episode 1, Matthew Anderson would end up having a conversation with Ru where he told Ru that he wanted an increase in the amount of money he was being paid, which somehow would end up escalating into a big argument, resulting in Matthew walking out of set, and the falling out of the friendship was solidified. A couple months after leaving World of Wonder, Matthew Anderson would end up experiencing some health conditions which landed him in the hospital. During his long stay at the hospital, one of the queens that was consistently visiting Matthew was Willam from Season 4. Willam seemed to always have a good relationship with Matthew. In fact, she has a couple of videos in her channel doing collaborations with Matthew. A fun fact is that the cover of Willam's book, Suck Less, was photographed by him as well. Willam has stated many times that RuPaul never paid Matthew Anderson a single visit to the hospital, but that World of Wonder was paying for all of Matthew's medical bills. Which, to be honest, is pretty commendable that they at least were covering his medical expenses, especially considering they unfortunately live in the United States. Willam has said on Race Chaser podcast that he once had an altercation with RuPaul in the streets of Los Angeles. Willam was walking in the street while Ru ended up driving by with his car. Willam yelled at Ru for not going to visit Matthew at the hospital, to which Ru yelled back, "How fucking dare you?" To which Willam replied, "You know what? I saw him yesterday, bought him a milkshake, but he'd actually like to see you show some face." And Ru ended the convo with, "Fuck you." Willam has also said that Matthew Anderson tended to sometimes test the limits of his friendship with RuPaul, citing that things that RuPaul did not want would sometimes be contrasted by Matthew's insistence. Ultimately, the butting heads would end up in a brawl between the two, which ended their decades-long friendship. Essentially, in regards to the falling out between Matthew Anderson and RuPaul, we don't have a lot of information. All we really know is that Matthew was on the set of the first episode of Season 9, and that at one point there was an argument that became super heated, presumably about Matthew wanting a higher pay. Nevertheless, the show had to go on, so by Season 9 Episode 2, World of Wonder gathered the help of two queens who competed on Drag Race. Raven from Season 2 would now be in charge of RuPaul's makeup, while Delta Work from Season 3 would be in charge of RuPaul's wigs. It was also convenient for production that the two girls also already lived in Los Angeles, so they were close by. Once Delta and Raven were hired, Season 9 would go on to have a rough start in general, especially with the purple lighting that kind of ruined a lot of the runways that we saw. Some have speculated that the reason most of the runways from Season 9 had this annoying purple lighting was due to the production trying to cover up the fact that RuPaul's hair and makeup were notably a lot worse than what we were used to seeing. Regardless, they would end up improving their skills as the season went on. On the Race Chaser podcast, Delta says that she had a conversation with Raven while on the set of the show. where Raven told Delta, quote, "We are not a package." So it set a standard moving forward that their relationship was going to be strictly professional. Delta said that she thought there'd be camaraderie between her and Raven, since they were both Ru girls working with RuPaul for the first time, but that it was clear from the beginning stages that it was each girl for themselves. Delta said that every wig she styled for RuPaul had RuPaul's approval. Most of the time, RuPaul would even change it up and was very specific about the details within the styling of his hair. During this time period, fans complained a lot about how RuPaul's wigs did not have any variety to them. Most of the time, they were very similar to each other, with Ru never even trying different colors. Delta says that the production told her she needed to pick wigs from a, quote, wig wardrobe that was provided to her. She'd sometimes ask RuPaul if she wanted to try something new, but the answer was always no. Most of the good wigs that RuPaul had worn were created by Matthew Anderson, which meant they were no longer on the set since Matthew took them with him when he left the show. It seemed that Delta got a little frustrated at RuPaul for not wanting to change up her wig choices. She'd even resort to occasionally bringing wigs from outside and pretending she found them in the wig wardrobe.
Because I wanted to be respectful. I didn't want to say, hey, guess what? The girls on the runway are out wigging you and I need to buy new wigs. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to be rude about it. I figured there was a way around it, but I'm quite honestly tired of being the bigger person.
Regardless, Raven and Delta would end up successfully making it through the entirety of season 9. And by the time the season aired, it was in line to get nominated for Emmys. When I looked into the Emmy nominations of Drag Race, I found out that Matthew Anderson was actually nominated for an Emmy in 2015 for his work on season 7. The following year, RuPaul would win Drag Race's first Emmy with Best Host for a Reality TV Competition in season 8.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are we done? Is that it? I know you. Where do I know you from? You work at World of Wonder. That's it. That's the company that does our show.
Which leads us to the following year when the Emmy scandal began. In 2017, Drag Race Season 9 would receive 7 nominations. From that, Raven and Delta were the first Ru girls to ever be nominated for an Emmy. Yet the historic moment wouldn't last long. Matthew Anderson said in an interview with Hey Queen that he first took notice of Raven when they worked together on Drag U. He said Raven had amazing makeup skills and that in a way sort of inspired him to go a different direction with some of his approaches to being a makeup artist. The Emmy scandal would start when Delta and Raven were each nominated for their respective work on RuPaul's hair and makeup. However, Willam would end up sparking debate online over the injustice that this meant for Matthew Anderson. Willam felt that since Matthew had worked on the show for so long that he should have been recognized for his achievement in makeup, at least at some capacity. Willam says that he was trying to protect the dignity and legacy of an individual. Willam also points out how in the 90s, many gay men were cast aside by mainstream and erased from history due to the AIDS crisis that rised in the late 80s. So she didn't like how quick the show was to drop Matthew the way they did. As I mentioned before, Season 8 was the first season to ever win any award from the Emmys, while the following year, Season 9 would surprisingly get 7 nominations. This meant that as soon as the show finally started gaining national recognition from established institutions, Matthew had stopped working with RuPaul. Now, an important thing to know about this story is that when it comes to the categories for Emmy nominations, production companies can only submit one episode from a season of their show to be considered for the nomination. In the case of season 9, the episode that was chosen for all the categories was episode 1. Delta says that when she found out she had been nominated for her first Emmy for the work she did on season 9, she was shocked, especially since she and Raven did not start working for the production of Drag Race until season 9 episode 2. Therefore, by a technical standpoint, they were nominated for work that they didn't do. To top it all off, RuPaul didn't even wear any drag for the premiere of season 9. Ultimately, the drama would result in Raven and Delta's Emmy nominations being rescinded, meaning that they were no longer Emmy nominees. This created another tear in the relationship between Willam and World of Wonder. After this, a lot of fans began to blame Willam for the reason why Delta and Raven ended up with no nomination. Yet, I don't really agree with that. For instance, a more logical reason for why the Emmys ended up rescinding Raven and Delta's nomination for hair and makeup Seems to me like it was due to World of Wonder making a mistake in the episode they chose to be considered for the category, given that RuPaul is not in hair or makeup for the entirety of the episode. It's also not uncommon for the Emmys to take away a nomination from a show. Typically, they'll release the list of nominees and afterwards do a more in-depth, thorough research regarding the validity of the credits in the nominees. For example, that same year, the TV show This Is Us was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Contemporary Costumes for a Series. However, one of the requirements in this category is that at least 51% of the episode needs to take place in the past 25 years. But due to more than half the episode they submitted taking place in flashbacks, it was concluded that most of the costumes from the episode were not contemporary, as it didn't take place within the criteria, which was the past 25 years. So their nomination was revoked based on technicalities, because the show itself takes place in modern times. It only just so happened that the episode they submitted had a lot of flashbacks that lacked modern clothing. Therefore, even though the nominations are sort of meant to represent the series as a whole, the Academy takes it very seriously when making sure the nominations have successfully completed the requirements expected of them. So it's possible that the reason for Delta and Raven's nomination being taken away wasn't the drama that was going on with Willam calling out World of Wonder, but it's more so very probable that they just figured Raven and Delta simply did not qualify to be nominated for an episode that they weren't even present for. Now, Willam does get vilified a lot, but the truth of the matter is that Matthew Anderson not only worked with RuPaul for decades, but also worked on RuPaul's Drag Race for a total of 10 seasons, which includes season 1 to 8 and All Stars 1 to 2. Without a doubt, he should have been given some type of recognition, especially since Raven would go on to take years to come close to the skill Matthew had on Ru's face. The following year, in 2018, Delta received another nomination for her work styling RuPaul's wigs on season 10. And she would go on to actually win her first Emmy, which was a historic moment for both Drag Race and queer culture. When Delta went to go accept her award, she thanked Matthew Anderson to give him some type of recognition. But apparently, Delta mentioned on the Race Chaser podcast that since 2016, while on the set of RuPaul's Drag Race, staff wasn't allowed to talk about Matthew or say his name, only referring to him as he or him. The following year is when the Emmy nominations would really start to damage the relationship between Delta Work and World of Wonder. In 2019, Delta would find out that World of Wonder did not submit her name to be considered for another Emmy nomination, this time for her work on season 11. Delta then tried to gather more information as to why this happened. She found out that the Academy was no longer recognizing her title as a makeup artist in a technical category, which was kind of weird since Delta had been nominated for season 9, even though the nomination was rescinded, but she then won an Emmy for season 10, and only now that it seemed she was no longer eligible to be considered for an Emmy nomination. Regardless, VH1 and World of Wonder at first told Delta that they would try to fix it. Delta then had to write a letter of appeal to the Academy of the Emmys. When they replied to her, they told Delta she did not have a quote credit, so she didn't qualify for it. That's when World of Wonder told Delta that in order for her to be nominated, she would have needed to have an official credit for the show, which she didn't have. Delta was flabbergasted. Why wasn't she credited by World of Wonder for her work? Upon further discussing with producers from World of Wonder, she was told that the Emmys had enacted a new rule that in order to be eligible for a nomination, you needed to be part of a union. To which Delta felt that even if the rule change was true, that it shouldn't have been applied to her given that the season was filmed over a year ago, before any rule change would have been made. Delta also said that she was never informed by World of Wonder that in order to qualify for future awards, she would need to be part of a workers' union, so that she could receive a credit for her work. She was under the impression that they, quote, advised her to be part of the union if she wanted to potentially work on other TV shows. But since Delta was fine with only working for Drag Race, she didn't see the need for it. One of the reasons Delta was able to qualify for the other awards was because while she wasn't a part of the union, she was a, quote, star request, which meant it provided her with special permissions to be able to work on RuPaul. That being said, it was weird that the quote star request was a valid form of accreditation for season 9 and 10, but the year after she actually won an Emmy, it it was suddenly no longer valid. A couple weeks later, RuPaul was going to go into the production of AJ and the Queen. Delta assumed that she and Raven would go on to work on the new show. In it, RuPaul was going to play the character of Ruby Red, which was a drag queen who for the most part was going to be wearing a lot of red wigs. So production told Delta that she needed to shop for red wigs. Delta said she was super excited about working on new types of wigs that RuPaul could wear. It's important to note that AJ and the Queen was not a World of Wonder production. It was largely produced by Warner Brothers. When negotiations for the show began, production told Delta that the work she would need to do for the show would be different than what she normally did for World of Wonder. Delta asked how many days a week RuPaul would need to be in drag, to which production responded, only about 2 days per week. So Delta thought she'd only need to be there for those days. Then things started to change, and production told Delta that she would need to be part of the production of the show for all 5 working days of the week. Because even though RuPaul would only be in drag for 2 days, production wanted Delta to help around fixing hair for other characters of the show. To which Delta refused, citing that the only person she will help style wigs for is RuPaul. Production reiterated that she needed to be there 5 days a week, but Delta said she wasn't going to work on fixing up extras for the show because she wasn't even part of the union. To which production told her that if she wasn't going to work on extras, to at least show up to the set and do nothing.
They said you have to be here 5 days a week and you have to work on all these different people. What? And I said, but I don't have a hair license. I mean, I don't have a union license, whatever. And they said, well, then you can just come in and do nothing. And I said, what do you mean do nothing? What would I do? Mm-hmm.
Delta then proposed a deal, stating that she wanted to keep working at the venues that were booking her while also working for the production of AJ and the Queen, so that just to give her the days production would need her on set and that she'd just cancel her venue bookings whenever she was needed. Production then said, quote, it doesn't work that way, and that she's either there full-time or not there at all. And so Delta said she'd rather not be there at all. So production would end up going forward with a different hairdresser to work on AJ and the Queen. Delta said that all she wanted was to get paid for the days that production needed her there. Production then insisted to Delta that if she wanted that type of leeway, she would need to join the union that existed for the production of the show. But she refused to do so since the cost of joining the union was $5,000, money of which she said she didn't have the luxury to spend. After the filming of AJ and the Queen, Delta wanted to get in contact with RuPaul to discuss going into the filming of Drag Race UK Season 1. Delta says that she always used to see RuPaul check his emails every morning as he ate breakfast. So she decided to send RuPaul an email. In it, she stated that she was excited to work on Drag Race UK and wanted the schedule to know which day she'd need to be on set. RuPaul then responded to her email.
About 4 days passed, and somebody who's written 3 books wrote me 3 sentences that said, hey D, AJ has me swamped. From here out, I'm using the other hairdresser. I'll let you know if I ever have any extra work. And I thought, extra work?
Delta felt insulted. That email was so short and dry, she expected more respect out of RuPaul, even if she was pretty much saying that she was replacing Delta. At this point though, Delta didn't feel she was out of the show completely, since she assumed that RuPaul choosing the new hairdresser would only be a thing for the UK version of the show. So by the time it was time to film season 12, she contacted World of Wonder again, asking what days they would need her to schedule for the filming of the show. To which production responded, quote, from here on out, we no longer need your services. Thank you for your time. She would then never work for World of Wonder again. So after essentially getting fired from RuPaul's Drag Race, Delta felt sort of lost as she tried to piece together what just happened. She began to recollect past interactions with people on set to try and find a reason for why she had been let go. She pointed out how there was a member of World of Wonder that once told her, quote, there's only one drag queen for RuPaul's Drag Race with an Emmy, and that's RuPaul. So you remember that. Delta thinks that winning her Emmy was the beginning of the end with her relationship with World of Wonder. Perhaps RuPaul felt threatened by the rising star of Delta work. In trying to find more reasons for her firing, Delta recollected a moment where she crossed the line with RuPaul. For instance, in one of the days on set, there was a wardrobe issue, and RuPaul had gotten very agitated. He ended up yelling, quote,
am I gonna have to do this myself? when are you going to use your head? That was the statement. And there were 3 of us in the room, 3 people that work with her intimately. And I remember laughing it off because I thought she's nervous. You know, she's got a lot going on. There's a big name here. You know, I don't know what those shoes are like, but I remember trying to break the ice with that. And I laughed and I said, oh girl, like you're going to do something for yourself.
After that, the whole production went silent and she instantly regretted saying that. But she felt that she just wanted to break the ice and make everyone laugh. Essentially, the 2016 situation repeated itself again in 2019, with Delta being let go by production. Delta said that while she worked for World of Wonder, she truly believed that they were looking out for all of the staff of the show, and bought the trope of the show being a quote, family. Yet, given the circumstances she experienced, she felt that that wasn't the case. While I was doing research for this video, I found an interview from 2011 that was done just a couple days after Season 3, Episode 8 aired, which was when Delta was eliminated from the show. In the interview, she's asked to name who she thought was the shadiest queen in the cast, to which she responded, quote, RuPaul. Now, there's no big reason why I'm mentioning this, aside from me thinking it was kind of funny. But back to the topic, I will say that despite Delta stating RuPaul was never keen on trying new wig styles, it seemed that as soon as they replaced Delta, RuPaul decided to start experimenting again. After all, beginning with Drag Race UK Season 1, there's been more moments where RuPaul has kind of changed up his style a little bit. In conclusion, as the years go by, we get to see less and less of what truly goes on behind the scenes of Drag Race, especially in regards to RuPaul. What we do know is that Matthew Anderson originally worked on both Ru's hair and makeup and was an absolute master at doing so. Yet ultimately, they would have a huge falling out that resulted in Matthew no longer working for World of Wonder. Subsequently, the story would repeat itself with Delta work, as she worked with RuPaul from Season 9 until Season 11, and would have a very public falling out with the production of World of Wonder. I felt that this drama was one of the more complicated ones that exist from the Drag Race subculture. So I thought I should put together all the information that exists from this and create a concise storyline. And I hope that I was able to provide a better understanding to some of you. Anyway, thank you guys so much for your support. It's amazing to be able to be making these videos and have people actually watch them. So I'll see you guys next time.